You know, in the tech world, we hear these stories all the time. Huge teams, massive budgets, years of work. But this story, this one's different. It's about an engineering feat that seems, well, almost impossible. One that kind of still has Silicon Valley scratching its head. So let me just ask you a question. To run a service for 900 million active users, that's more than twice the entire population of the United States. How many engineers do you think you'd need? Really think about it. For a major tech company, what's the number that pops into your head? You'd probably guess a number kind of like this, right? 15,000 engineers. It seems plausible, for sure. That's a whole army of coders, database managers, and network specialists all working around the clock just to keep the lights on. It's a totally reasonable assumption for that kind of insane scale. But the real answer isn't 15,000. It's 50. 50. That is it. And no, that's not a typo. That's the number of engineers WhatsApp had when it was serving nearly 1 billion people. So the real question isn't how many. It's how. I mean, how is that even possible? Okay, let's just let these numbers sink in for a second. By 2015, this tiny team was handling 900 million users. And those users were sending 40 billion messages a day. Think about that. An entire global communication backbone was being run by a team that could barely fill a single tour bus. It's just wild. So the first secret to understanding this miracle is a principle that honestly goes against everything we're taught about business. It's the power of no. Their success wasn't defined by what they built, but by everything they flat out refused to build. I mean, this quote from an early engineer just says it all. While all the other apps were piling on games and ads and a million other features, WhatsApp did one thing, and one thing only: reliable messaging. They subtracted everything else. No complicated profiles, no newsfeed, no ads. Just pure, simple communication. That's it. Think about this in contrast to a company like Yahoo. Back in its heyday, Yahoo tried to be everything to everyone. You had email, news, shopping, search, the list goes on. But they never defined their endgame. They just became this sprawling empire of features without a real core identity. WhatsApp, on the other hand, had a singular, obsessive focus. And we see this pattern again and again. Take Groupon. They tried to serve every local business you can imagine. And what was the result? Well, the high-end spas felt cheapened, and the local pizza joints got totally overwhelmed by one-time bargain hunters who never ever came back. By trying to be for everyone, they ended up serving no one particularly well. The price of not choosing your customer is that a competitor will. Okay, so ruthless focus was one pillar. The second one was all about their technology choices. They consistently chose substance over style, picking the most effective tools for the job, not necessarily the most popular or trendy ones. Let's just take a look at their tech stack. In a world completely dominated by Linux, they chose something called FreeBSD. Why? Well, as co-founder Brian Acton put it, Linux is a beast of complexity. They wanted simplicity and stability. And for their programming language, they didn't use what was hot in Silicon Valley. They used something called Erlang. So why Erlang? Well, it turns out it was built for exactly what WhatsApp needed to do. It was originally designed for old-school telephone exchanges, systems that have to handle millions of simultaneous connections without ever failing. It was built for massive concurrency and reliability from the ground up. It was the perfect, if totally unfashionable choice. This smart choice of tools helped WhatsApp avoid something we call the optimization trap. And a perfect example of this trap is BlackBerry. Remember them? They got incredibly good at perfecting things like physical keyboards and secure email. The problem was, they were optimizing for a world that was rapidly disappearing. The contrast here is just everything. On one hand, you have WhatsApp, optimizing for the future, a world with billions of users who need flawless messaging. On the other, you have BlackBerry, optimizing for the past, perfecting features the market was already leaving behind. And well, the results speak for themselves, don't they? So how does this all come together? Well, when you combine that ruthless focus with these super pragmatic tools, you get what we're calling the 50 engineer philosophy. It's really about turning your limitations, like having a tiny team, into your greatest superpowers. It really boils down to 3 simple sounding steps. First, subtract ruthlessly. Actively decide what you are not going to do. Second, focus obsessively on that one core thing you are going to do. And third, choose substance over style. Use the tools that will actually get the job done, regardless of what's popular or trendy. And if you ever, for 1 second, doubt the power of this philosophy, this chart says it all. Each WhatsApp engineer supported 18 million users. The typical ratio in the industry is closer to 1 engineer for every 15,000. That's not just more efficient, it's a completely different dimension of efficiency. That right there, that's the miracle. So this whole thing leaves us with a final thought. The biggest lesson from WhatsApp might not be about what you should start building, but what you should stop building. And it forces us to ask ourselves a pretty tough question. To achieve our biggest goals, what is the one thing we should have the courage to stop doing?